Hello everyone, my name is Deepti Mittal. In our last video lecture, we just finished database design. We have discussed some previous year question on that particular topic. So you can completely refer now database design. In this particular video lecture, we'll start with ER model. What ER model stands for? Entity Relationship Model. So we have studied database design up till now. One thing which if you remember about database design, we have studied all the rules which are required to design a database. That is finding candidate key, decomposition into higher normal form and everything. But does we applied all these rules accordingly to design a database? No. Up till now we have not applied all these rules to design a database. Now that designing we will do with ER models. One more thing, why we are referring ER model, the question which came to our mind, why we are referring ER model. So first we will get definition and then we will know why we are referring ER model. So one thing which is written here is way to represent the database system diagrammatically. If you want to represent your database system diagrammatically, then ER models are preferred. Why we want to refer our database system diagrammatically? One thing, if you remember, we have told this thing from very childhood of us that it is easy to remember things when we represent them in the form of diagrams or images. So same thing is here. If you want to represent your database, which is not a small unit, you can represent it using diagrams in 3D model, and when you work on it, it is very easy to work on database designing. This is the main reason we prefer ER model while designing our database. It is used for high-level database design. Since we are referring database management system when we are having a very huge data. So this ER model is used to design that high-level database. Let us move towards next topic. What we are going to study, first of all, before we actually make a start with ER model, we should know how to design a particular ER model for a given database system. So first of all, we will know about the components of ER diagram. The main components are attribute, entity sets and relationship sets. Let us start with attributes. First of all, the main thing is you know about attributes. Attributes are the columns which you store in your table. So attributes are the key elements or the data elements which you want to store in your database design. They will remain same as we have studied in database design. So tell me the main types of attribute which we have studied till now. You have studied that thing. Main was simple valued attribute, multi-valued attribute, derived attributes, compound attributes and so many things. So there is nothing new in this particular thing, just we have to get the idea. One more thing, since you are representing each and everything in the form of diagram, so one question which came to your mind, how we are going to represent attribute in an ER diagram? Attribute will be represented by an oval. If you want to store a particular attribute, let us say we are having a student relation and you have to store attribute say SID. Then how you gonna store? You will make an oval and write name of that attribute. It is very simple and very attractive, and it is quite interactive. When you design your database by using ER model, it became very interactive and easy to design it. Second thing is entity sets. Let us discuss about entity sets. We have studied about relations. What actually relation stands for? Table. Same thing is entity set. You can say table, relation, entity set, all are same things. First of all, let us divide it in. First of all, we get the meaning for entity. What is an entity? Set of similar data, set of similar object. Suppose you want to store details of a student, the same example which we have discussed in our first video lecture. You have to store student name, student ID, course taken, all these things. This thing will make a entity, that is a particular row in a relation. A row is referred as entity and the set of all rows or tuples will be referred as entity set. A particular entity will be represented in our database system using rectangle. Suppose you want to refer an entity student, a table student, then you will represent this particular entity as a rectangle. Now let us discuss different types of attributes and how we are going to represent them. I always told you that it is very easy when you study things with example. So this is, I prefer to teach, or I prefer to learn each and everything with the help of an example, because if you learn with example, you remember things for a very long time. So what we are going to do, the same thing. Suppose we are having a student relation, and the attributes or the data which we want to store about the students are student ID, student name, email, phone number, and so many things, like you can store Aadhaar number also. So we have to represent this particular relation in the form of ER diagram. So what one thing I told you, you have to first represent the table. How we used to represent the table? Yes, we represent it with the help of rectangle. So this rectangle will going to have the name for relation. Now, if you see, student ID will be unique for each and every student. So this particular thing can work as candidate key. If an attribute is candidate key, then it is represented by underlining that attribute. Same thing, you have to represent it in the form of oval and just underline it. If you want to store S name, what maybe the student name, suppose it is Abhinav Gupta. So there are two things which you want to store. This S name can be divided into two more things, that is first name and then comes the last name. What we say about these type of attributes? These type of attributes are composite attributes which can be further divided. So composite attributes are represented in such a way that S name, which can be further divided into two parts, first name and last name. Then you are having two more things, that is email and phone number. It may be the case that students are having two or more email IDs. It is not always the case that each and every student might be using only one email ID. So email ID can serve as multi-valued attributes, and multi-valued attributes are represented using double circling, that is oval inside oval. Then you are going to have email here. Same cases with the phone number. A particular student can have more than one phone number, so phone number is also multi-valued attribute here. So it is also represented with double oval. And the remaining thing is Aadhaar number. It is simple attribute. There is nothing like, it is not composite, not storing multi-values, so multiple values. So there is no need for special treatment. It can be directly stored, Aadhaar number. So what one thing which I can say about this, if you have to store candidate key or some key, then that attribute should be underlined. If you want to store multi-valued attribute, then it should be represented by double circling. If you have to store simple attribute, then it can be represented by simple oval. But if you want to store a composite attribute, then that attribute is going to have bifurcation in this manner. So now you have a basic idea how to represent a particular relation in the form of ER model. Let us move towards next topic. That is, we have studied, we are having three components. The three main components of entity relationship model are attributes, entity set, relationship set. Till now we have discussed attributes and entity sets. Now we are going to discuss relationship set. We have not studied about relationship set up till now. Suppose you are having a student, a table student, and you are having one more table, that is course. You want to know which students are enrolled in which course. So there is no need of storing all the data in enroll table. We are going to have a particular relationship set for this. See here, if there is a table named student enrolled in some course. So this relationship will say about enrollment details. How it is going to store the enrollment details? This relationship set will surely have two attributes. You know now how to represent attributes with the help of ovals. The candidate key for student relation and the candidate key for course relation. Suppose a student is having SID and course is having CID as the candidate key. So the relationship set enrollment will have two attributes for sure. It is always going to carry the candidate keys of the relations which are participating in that particular relationship set. So the main attributes are SID and CID. These are the, you can say, this much should be the part of our relationship table. One more thing you can ask, whether I am going to have only these two attributes or adding of some other attributes are also allowed or not. Yes, it is allowed to add some more attributes for that particular relationship set. Suppose you want to add an extra attribute, say fees. You want to store the details of fees paid by a student for that particular course. Definitely you can add. And this attribute which you added extra for that relationship set will be known as descriptive attribute. So what we can say about a relationship set? It will be recurring unit between two or more entities, and what is going to store in that particular relationship set is candidate key of entity 1, entity set 1 and candidate key of entity set 2 and whatever attribute you want to add as extra. C. What we are having? Binary relationship. When a relationship set is related to only two entity sets, then it is known as binary relationship. You can see students, course. This R is related to student entity set and course entity set. Same thing which I told you, that it is going to have two attributes. The main thing is the candidate key for student and candidate key for course entity set. So it is having two attributes. If any other attribute which you want to add, then you can add, and that will be known as descriptive attribute. So there may be some cases like you want to store, you want to relate a particular entities with more than one entity, that is 3, 4 entities are related to each other, 5 entity sets are related to each other. Yes, this is also allowed. See here. Here this particular relationship set R is related to 3 entity set. Then it is known as ternary relationship set. If it is going to relate with 4 entity set, then quadruple relationship set. And in this manner you can have n-ary relationship set. But it is preferred that you should store the data in such a way that relationship set should be binary. Because if you increase the number of entity sets, then complexity also increases. You have to store the candidate key for all the three entity set, and then complexity increases here. So it is preferred that you should store data in such a way that relationship set should be binary. Now we have discussed about entity sets, but entity set may be of many types. Here we are having a special case, weak entity set. So the concept of weak entity set arises when there is no key in a particular entity set. What I have told you, entity set is a relation and each and every relation is going to have a key, because there may be some attributes which can determine or identify the relationship set uniquely. But in some cases it is not possible. You are having some repetitions in your data. So that particular entity set is known as weak entity set, and weak entity sets are represented by double rectangles. You can see here. Then new comes self-referential entity set. So what is the new case which is occurring in self-referential entity set? When entity set, and we are having an entity set E1 and entities of entity set E1 are related to itself. see this. We are having only one entity set and this relation is related to itself. Suppose we can take an example. It will be very easy to remember such type of things. Suppose you are having a student entity set having SID and SName. And this relationship set R is friendship. Definitely a particular S1, let us say S1, is friend of someone who is part of this student table. So this friendship is related to student only. Student will be friend of student. So this is known as self-referential entity set. When entity set E1, some entities of entity set E1 is related to some other entity of entity set E1. This is the case with self-referential entity sets. So up till now we have discussed all the basic terms and the basic representation which we are going to use in our ER model. Now we have a good idea how to represent attributes, entity set, relationship set, and these are the main things which you are going to represent in your database design. So if I want to store my database by using ER model, so basic steps we have to follow. First is gathering of requirement. You should know how much table you needed, how much data you want to store, and how much relationships will be required. Second thing, represent requirements as ER diagram. Now you are aware of which table you want to store and what are the relations between them. Then represent each and every relation in the form of ER diagram, and then convert those ER diagrams into Dbms tables and then divide them into higher normal form and normalized schema. So in this particular video lecture we have discussed representing the requirements as ER diagram. Now we are having a clear idea how to represent our relations and relationship sets, entity sets in the form of ER diagram. And the next thing which we are going to study is how to convert that ER diagram into relationship database tables. So our next video will cover how to convert the ER diagram into relationship DBMS model and how to store the ER diagram in the form of tables into our system. So guys, stay updated and tuned for more videos. Thank you and all the best for your future.